Mason Reed stood in the rain outside the farmhouse, fists clenched, staring at the foreclosure notice nailed to his childhood home. 32 years old, divorced, broke, a failed business, and a 4-year-old daughter who kept asking when they'd stop running. He had exactly $73 left and nowhere else to go. Then the black Mercedes pulled into the driveway next door. The woman who stepped out made his breath catch. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because 20 years ago he'd promised her something impossible, and she hadn't forgotten. Want to see how this story ends? Stay until the final part, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The key didn't fit. Mason jiggled it again, rain soaking through his jacket while Emma whimpered in the truck behind him. Of course the damn key didn't fit. Nothing in his life fit anymore. Not the apartment in Chicago he couldn't afford. Not the marriage that imploded spectacularly in a lawyer's office. Not the father he was supposed to be but kept failing at. "Daddy, I'm cold." "I know, baby. Just give me a second." The lock finally turned with a grinding protest that sounded exactly how Mason felt. The door swung open into darkness, and the smell of 15 years of abandonment, dust, mildew, and memories he'd spent half his life trying to escape. His parents' farmhouse on Willow Creek Lane looked worse than he remembered. Peeling wallpaper, water stains spreading across the ceiling like bruises. Windows so grimy they turned the gray March afternoon into permanent twilight. "This is where we're living?" Emma's voice was small behind him. Mason turned to find his daughter standing in the doorway, her Hello Kitty backpack bigger than she was, brown eyes enormous in her thin face. She looked like her mother. Same delicate features, same way of looking at him like she was waiting for him to disappoint her. "Just for a little while, Em, until I get things sorted." "You said that about the motel." "This is different. You said that about Aunt Jennifer's house, too." 4 years old, and already she could gut him with the truth. Mason crouched down to her level, ignoring the way his knees protested. 32 going on 60. "I promise this time is different. This was my house when I was a kid. My dad built that porch himself. You see that maple tree out there? I used to climb it every summer." Emma peered past him into the gloom. "It's scary." "I know, but we'll make it less scary. Tomorrow we'll clean the windows and you can pick which room you want. Deal?" She studied him with that unnerving intensity kids have, the kind that sees straight through adult bullshit. Finally she nodded. "Can I have the one with the window seat?" "You can have any room you want." That night, they ate gas station sandwiches on the floor because he didn't have furniture. Emma fell asleep curled against him while rain hammered the roof, and Mason stared at the ceiling, doing math that didn't work no matter how many times he ran it. $73. The construction company had gone under, owing him 4 months of back pay he'd never see. The truck needed new brakes. Emma needed new shoes. The house needed everything. He'd hit bottom so hard he'd cracked straight through to whatever was underneath. His phone buzzed. A text from his ex-wife. "Did you remember Emma's EpiPen?" Mason's stomach dropped. He texted back, "Yes." In her backpack, it was there. He'd checked 3 times. But the fact that Sarah had to ask, that she didn't trust him with their daughter's life, made something twist in his chest. Another text. "She needs stability, Mason, not whatever this is." He didn't respond. What could he say? That he was doing his best? That he dragged them to his dead parents' house in a town of 800 people because it was the only place he could live rent-free? That he woke up every morning terrified he was ruining his daughter's life? Emma stirred against him. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby." "I heard something outside." "It's just the wind." "No, it's a car." Mason listened. She was right. Engine noise, growing closer, then cutting off. Strange. Nobody knew they were here. He'd driven straight through from Chicago, hadn't told anyone. He eased Emma onto the sleeping bag and moved to the window, careful of the rotten floorboards. Through the grimy glass, he could barely make out the house next door, the old Carter place. Dark for as long as he could remember. Mrs. Carter had died when he was in high school, and the daughter had left years before that. But there were lights on now, and a car in the driveway. Not just any car. A Mercedes S-Class, black and gleaming even in the rain. Completely absurd on this muddy country lane where most people drove pickups held together with rust and prayer. A woman got out. Even at this distance, even through dirty glass and rain, Mason could tell she didn't belong here. Expensive coat. Hair pulled back, the kind of posture that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you were worth. She stood there for a moment, face tilted up to the rain, and something about the gesture made his chest tight. Then she turned toward his house. For just a second, porch light illuminated her face, and Mason's breath stopped. No. No, it couldn't be. 20 years. People changed, but he'd know those eyes anywhere. Dark and serious. The kind that always seemed to be looking at something just beyond what everyone else could see. Vivian Carter, who'd left this town the day after high school graduation and never came back. Who'd told him she was going to do something important with her life. Who'd kept the stupid plastic ring he'd given her when they were kids and told him she'd never forget his promise. She was supposed to be in New York or California, somewhere that matched her ambition. Not here, not next door to his disaster of a life. He watched her disappear into the house, lights clicking on room by room, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Curiosity. And underneath that, smaller and more dangerous. Hope. All right. Morning came too early and too bright. Emma woke him by sitting on his chest. "Daddy, there's a lady outside." Mason groaned and squinted at his watch. 6:15. "Em, nobody's outside. It's too early." "There is too. She's running." He rolled upright, every muscle in his back screaming. Sleeping on hardwood at 32 hit different than it had at 22. Emma had her face pressed against the window, breath fogging the glass. "See?" Mason looked. Vivian Carter was running along Willow Creek Lane in expensive athletic wear, ponytail swinging, the kind of effortless morning person energy that made him irrationally annoyed. Who ran at 6 in the morning in March in Iowa? "Can I go say hi?" "No." "Why not?" "Because we don't know her." "She's our neighbor. That means we know her." 4-year-old logic was airtight and infuriating. "Em, we need to clean the house. Remember? You were going to pick your room." That distracted her. Mason spent the next hour scrubbing years of grime off windows while Emma dragged her stuffed animals from room to room, narrating elaborate stories about which one liked which space. She settled on the room with the window seat overlooking the backyard, which needed a new mattress he couldn't afford. He was elbow deep in a clogged sink when someone knocked. Mason froze. Nobody knew they were here. He'd deliberately not told anyone, including his ex-wife, the exact address. Just back in Whitfield, which could mean anywhere in the county. The knock came again, polite but persistent. He wiped his hands on his jeans and opened the door. Vivian Carter stood on his porch holding a casserole dish and looking like she'd walked out of a lifestyle magazine. Cream sweater, dark jeans, hair still damp from the shower. No makeup that he could see, but she didn't need it. Up close, he could see the years. Tiny lines at the corners of her eyes. A new wariness in the way she held herself, but still unmistakably Vivian. Sharp and polished, and somehow softer than he remembered. "Mason Reed." She said it like she was trying the name out. "I wasn't sure it was you, not until I saw the truck." He became acutely aware that he was covered in grime and probably smelled like wet basement. "Vivian, I didn't know you were back." "Just moved in yesterday." She held out the casserole dish. "I made too much. Thought you might want some." It was the most obvious lie he'd heard all week, and something about that made him smile. "You just happened to make too much casserole the day after you moved in?" A tiny crack in her composure. "I'm a terrible liar. I saw your truck last night and made it this morning." "Why?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Because you're my neighbor? Because you probably don't have a working kitchen yet? Because—" She stopped, something shifting in her expression. "Do you want the food or not?" "I want the food. Sorry, He took the dish, warm through the towel wrapped around it. "Thank you. You didn't have to do this." "I know." They stood there in awkward silence. Mason tried to think of something to say that didn't sound like every stupid thing he wanted to ask. "Why are you here? What happened? Do you remember that summer when we were 11 and you told me you were going to run away to Paris?" "Daddy, who is it?" Emma appeared at his hip, staring up at Vivian with open curiosity. Vivian's entire face transformed. The polished CEO mask dropped and something genuine broke through. Hi there. I'm Vivian. I live next door. I'm Emma. I'm 4. We're staying here because Daddy lost his job and Mommy said he needed to figure his life out. Mason wanted to die. It's okay, Vivian said, crouching down to Emma's level. Moving is hard. I just moved too. Left a job, actually. So I'm also figuring things out. Emma considered this. Did you get fired? Emma! It's fine. Vivian's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Not fired. I quit. Well, sort of. It's complicated. Adults are always complicated, Emma said sagely. That's what my therapist says. Vivian glanced up at Mason, questions in her eyes, but all she said was, Your therapist sounds smart. She's okay. She has good toys. Emma tugged on Mason's hand. Can I show her my room? I'm sure Vivian is busy. I'm not, actually. Vivian straightened. I'd love to see your room. Emma lit up and grabbed Vivian's hand, dragging her inside before Mason could object. He followed, acutely aware of the disaster surrounding them. Boxes, trash bags, the couch he'd pulled from the barn that smelled like mouse. But Vivian didn't seem to notice or care. She let Emma pull her up the stairs, admiring each room with what seemed like genuine interest. This is mine, Emma announced, pulling her into the bedroom with the window seat. I'm getting a bed, but Daddy says we have to wait. But I have Mr. Bear and Princess Frog, and that's enough. Vivian settled on the window seat, looking out at the backyard. This is a great room. Best view in the house. That's what I said. Emma climbed up beside her. You can see the whole world from here. Not quite the whole world, just overgrown grass and the maple tree and Vivian's house beyond. But Mason didn't correct her. Vivian pointed toward the tree. Your dad used to climb that tree every summer. Did he tell you? Really? Emma looked at Mason with new interest. You never said you climbed trees. It was a long time ago. He fell out of it once, Vivian continued. Broke his arm in 2 places. Cried for 20 minutes. I did not cry. You absolutely did. Your mom had to drive you to the hospital and you cried the whole way. Emma giggled. Daddy cried? Everyone cries sometimes, Vivian said, looking at Mason now. Even people who pretend they're tough. There was something under the words. A weight he couldn't quite identify. Emma leaned against Vivian like they'd known each other for years. Do you have kids? No. Why not? Emma, that's not... Mason started. It's okay. Vivian's voice was quiet. I never found the right person, I guess. My mommy says Daddy isn't the right person either. That's why they got divorced. The silence that followed was excruciating. Mason wanted to disappear into the floor, to explain that Sarah wasn't wrong, that he'd failed at being a husband in every way that mattered, that Emma shouldn't have to carry that knowledge around. Vivian just pulled Emma closer. Sometimes people are right for each other for a little while and then they're not. That doesn't mean anything was wrong. It just means things changed. That's what my therapist says too. She really is smart. Emma yawned, sudden and huge. The kind of yawn that meant she'd crash hard in about 10 minutes. Someone's tired, Vivian said gently. Maybe you should rest. I'm not tired. Sure you're not. Vivian stood, easing Emma off her lap. But I should go anyway. Let you and your dad get settled. Emma's face fell. You'll come back though, right? If your dad says it's okay. They both looked at Mason. He should say no, should establish boundaries, should not let this woman, this stranger, who wasn't really a stranger, into their broken life. You're welcome any time, he heard himself say. Vivian's smile was small but real. Okay then. She came back that night with tools. Mason was trying to fix the porch step. The 3rd board was rotted through and he'd nearly put his foot through it carrying Emma inside, when Vivian appeared with a toolbox that looked like it had never been used. I thought you might need these. He looked up from the splintered wood. You just happen to have a complete tool set? I bought it this afternoon. The hardware store owner seemed very concerned about a woman buying tools alone. Her voice was dry. He asked if my husband sent me. Mason laughed despite himself. That sounds like Ed Morrison. He still thinks women shouldn't drive. I noticed. She set the toolbox down. Need help? You know how to fix a porch? No, but I can follow instructions. They worked in comfortable silence as the sun set. Mason showing her how to measure and cut, Vivian's precise movements suggesting she was used to learning fast. She didn't complain about the cold or the splinters or when she smashed her thumb with the hammer. "So," Mason said, testing the new board, "you want to tell me why you're really here? In Whitfield?" "Yeah." Vivian sat back on her heels. "My dad's sick." The words landed heavy. Mason remembered Mr. Carter. Quiet man, worked at the feed store, always had butterscotch candies in his pocket. "I'm sorry, what's—" "Alzheimer's. Early onset. He's in a facility in Cedar Rapids." She brushed sawdust off her jeans. "He has good days and bad days. Mostly bad lately." "That's why you came back?" "Part of it." She looked out at the darkening sky. "The other part is I was tired of pretending." "Pretending what?" "That I was fine. That I loved my life. That working 80 hours a week for a company I built from nothing still felt like winning." She laughed, but it was hollow. "I'm a CEO. Did you know that?" "No." "Carter Tech Solutions. We do cybersecurity software for Fortune 500 companies. I started it 7 years ago in my apartment. Sold my first contract for $2 million. Last year we cleared $80 million in revenue." Mason whistled low. "That's a lot." "I know." She picked at the wood grain. "I should feel proud, successful, like I made something of myself." "You don't?" "I feel empty." The words came out quiet. "I have 1,200 employees who depend on me, investors breathing down my neck, board meetings and strategy sessions, and everyone telling me I'm doing amazing, and I wake up every morning and feel nothing." Mason didn't know what to say to that. His problems were concrete. No money, no job, no plan. Hers seemed harder to fix. "My ex-fiancé proposed last year," Vivian continued. "Marcus, venture capitalist, very successful, very ambitious. He proposed at a charity gala in front of 300 people, and I said yes because it seemed like what I was supposed to do." "What happened?" "My dad got diagnosed 2 months later. I told Marcus I needed to step back from work, spend time in Iowa, figure out care options." She met Mason's eyes. "He said he couldn't be with someone who wasn't committed to their career, that he needed a partner who understood success. He sounds like an asshole." He was honest. I'll give him that. She stood, brushing off her knees. The breakup made headlines. Tech CEO dumped by finance bro. Lots of think pieces about women having it all. My company's stock dropped 6% because investors worried I was distracted. Jesus. So I quit. Well, stepped down as active CEO. Kept my shares but handed operations to my COO. Moved back here to be near Dad and figure out who I am when I'm not performing anymore. They stood on the porch as night settled around them, the farmhouse warm behind them, and Mason realized something. They were both hiding. Him from a life that had chewed him up and spit him out. Her from a life that looked perfect but felt like drowning. "You want to know something embarrassing?" Mason said. "Always." "I Googled you earlier, after you left." Vivian tensed. "And?" "The articles call you a tech visionary, a self-made billionaire, one of Forbes 30 under 30. I'm 30. I missed that list. The pictures show this confident CEO in expensive suits, big smile, like you have everything figured out. And she looks nothing like the girl I remember." Mason leaned against the railing. That Vivian was scared of everything. Hated speaking in class. Used to hide in the library during lunch. People change. Do they? Or do they just get better at pretending? Vivian looked at him for a long moment. "You're different too. The Mason I knew was going to be an architect, build beautiful things, change skylines." "Yeah, well, that didn't work out." "What happened?" "I met Sarah sophomore year of college, got her pregnant junior year. Dropped out to work construction because we needed money. Spent 10 years building other people's dreams while mine got smaller and smaller." "That's not failure." "Feels like it." He kicked at the new board. "My daughter's in therapy because her parents couldn't figure out how to stay married. I'm 32 and living in my dead parents' house with $73 to my name. I call that failure. I call that being human. Easy to say when you're a billionaire." "Is it?" Her voice sharpened. "You think money fixes everything? I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes, and I'm standing on a broken porch in Iowa because everywhere else I've been feels fake." Mason held up his hands. You're right. I'm sorry. That was shitty. It was. But her voice softened. Also, not entirely wrong. I am lucky. I know that. You're also alone. Vivian flinched like he'd hit her. Sorry, Mason said quickly. I didn't mean... No, you're right. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm alone. Have been for a while. Being successful doesn't make people want to know you. It makes them want things from you. Is that why you made me casserole? You were lonely? Maybe. She smiled, small and sad. Or maybe I saw a light on next door and remembered what it felt like when someone gave a damn about me without wanting anything back. Something passed between them then. Recognition, maybe. Or just the relief of being seen. Your daughter asked me today if I remembered you, Vivian said quietly. From when we were kids. What'd you say? I said yes. That you were kind. That you once gave me a dandelion ring and promised to marry me so I'd never be lonely. Mason's throat went tight. I was 10. You were sweet. She looked at him directly now. Do you remember what you said? Exactly. No. You said, I'm going to marry you someday, Viv, and you'll never have to feel sad again. I promise. She pulled something from her pocket. A small plastic ring, purple and cheap, the kind you'd get from a quarter machine. I kept it. Why? Because nobody ever promised me something like that before. My mom left when I was 8. My dad worked all the time just to keep us afloat. And this boy, her voice cracked. This boy barely knew me and he promised I wouldn't be alone. Vivian. I know it was just kid stuff. I know you didn't mean it, but standing here seeing you again, she laughed, wiping at her eyes. God, this is embarrassing. Mason reached out and closed her hand around the ring. It's not embarrassing. I'm a 30-year-old CEO crying about a plastic ring. You're a woman who kept a promise close to her heart. That's different. They stood there in the dark, hands touching, both of them breathing too fast. Then Emma's voice drifted from inside. Daddy, I had a bad dream. The moment broke. Mason squeezed Vivian's hand once and let go. I should go. Take care of her. He paused at the door. Vivian? Yeah? I'm glad you're here. Next door, I mean. It's nice. Having someone. Her smile was genuine this time. Yeah, it is. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings, Mason would wake to find coffee on his porch. Not expensive coffee, just a simple thermos with a note that said things like, good luck today, or the hardware store has plywood on sale. He'd see Vivian leaving for Cedar Rapids to visit her father, coming back late with exhaustion written into every line of her body. Some nights she'd wave, others she'd go straight inside. Mason started leaving things on her porch too. Nothing big, just things he noticed she needed. WD-40 when her gate started squeaking, a stack of firewood when the temperature dropped. Once, a bag of groceries because he'd seen her come home empty-handed 3 nights running. They didn't talk about it. Didn't make it a thing. It just was. Emma noticed, of course. Kids noticed everything. Why do you like Vivian? She asked one morning, watching him refill the thermos to return. I don't... She's just our neighbor, Em. You smile different when you talk about her. I smile the same. No, you don't. You smile like when I draw you pictures, like it makes you happy sad. Happy sad. 4 years old, and she'd nailed it. She's an old friend, Mason said carefully. We grew up together. Did you love her before Mommy? It wasn't like that. But did you? Mason thought about 10-year-old Vivian with dirt on her knees and grass in her hair. Thought about the way she'd looked at him when he gave her that stupid ring, like he'd handed her the world. Maybe, he admitted, in the way kids love each other before things get complicated. Things are always complicated, Emma said wisely. That's why people need therapy. Oh, the invitation came on a Thursday. Mason was replacing the porch railing when Vivian appeared, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, hair in a messy bun. She looked young like this, vulnerable. I'm going to visit my dad tomorrow, she said without preamble. Do you want to come? I don't think... He's having a good day. The facility called this morning. He's lucid in asking about the house. She twisted her hands together. I thought maybe seeing someone from the old neighborhood might make him happy. And I... She stopped. I don't want to go alone. The admission cost her. Mason could see it. Okay, he said. Yeah, I'll come. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. We can leave at 9. It's about an hour drive. What about Emma? Bring her. They have a play area. The next morning, they drove to Cedar Rapids in Vivian's Mercedes. Emma was entranced by the heated seats and the backup camera and the way the car seemed to anticipate everything. Our car smells like French fries, she informed Vivian seriously. All the best cars do, Vivian said. The memory care facility was nicer than Mason expected. Bright, clean. Staff that smiled like they meant it. But underneath the cheerful paint and encouraging posters, there was a sadness he could feel in his bones. Mr. Carter was in the sunroom, staring out at the garden. He'd aged hard. White hair where Mason remembered brown. Thin in a way that suggested he forgot to eat. But his eyes were clear when they entered. Vivian. His voice was rough but warm. There's my girl. Hi, Daddy. Vivian kissed his cheek and Mason watched her transform. The CEO vanished. In her place was just a daughter who missed her father. I brought someone to see you. Do you remember Mason Reed from Willow Creek? Mr. Carter squinted at Mason. For a moment, nothing. Then recognition flickered. Little Mason Reed, you're not little anymore. No, sir. Grew a bit. Your father was a good man. Sorry about his passing. Both your folks. He reached for Vivian's hand. Did you tell him yet? Tell me what? Mason asked. Vivian shot her father a warning look, but he barreled ahead the way old people do when they've decided something needs saying. She had a crush on you. Huge. Used to talk about you all the time. Dad, it's true. Mason said this. Mason did that. Drove me crazy. He smiled at the memory. Then you gave her that ring and she about floated away. Vivian's face was scarlet. Can we not? Why not? I'm old. I get to say what I want. Mr. Carter turned to Mason. She kept it, you know, that ring. Even when that fancy fiancé gave her a real diamond, she kept yours in a box by her bed. I think that's enough memory lane for today, Vivian said tightly. But Mr. Carter wasn't done. His face shifted, confusion creeping in. Where's your mother, honey? She said she'd visit. Vivian's expression crumpled. Mom's not coming, Daddy. Remember? She said she'd visit. She promised. I know, but she's not. She's gone. She left a long time ago. That's not right. She was just here. He looked around, agitated now. Where is she? Vivian, where's your mother? A nurse appeared, gentle and practiced. Mr. Carter, why don't we take a walk? The garden's beautiful today. I need to find my wife. We'll look for her together. Come on. They led him away, still asking for a woman who'd abandoned them 22 years ago. Vivian stood frozen, watching her father disappear down the hall. Mason touched her shoulder. Hey, you okay? He does this sometimes. Gets confused about when things are. Who's still here? Her voice was hollow. Last week he thought I was my mother. Got angry that I'd left him alone. Jesus. The doctors say it'll get worse, that eventually he won't know me at all. She turned to face Mason, eyes dry but devastated. How do you prepare for someone to forget you exist? I don't think you can. I'm losing him piece by piece, and there's nothing I can do. All my money, all my success, and I can't fix this. She laughed bitterly. Turns out being a billionaire doesn't mean shit when it actually matters. Emma appeared then, holding a stuffed animal from the play area. Is Vivian sad? Yeah, baby, she's sad. Emma walked over and held up the stuffed animal, a purple dinosaur with lopsided eyes. You can hold Barney if you want. He helps when I'm sad about Mommy and Daddy. Vivian took the dinosaur with shaking hands. Thank you, Emma. You're welcome. Also, I think we should get ice cream. Daddy always says ice cream makes sad better. I don't know if... Vivian started. Ice cream sounds perfect, Mason interrupted. Come on, we passed a place on the way in. They ended up at a local shop, Emma with chocolate chip, Mason with vanilla, Vivian staring at her untouched strawberry cone like she'd forgotten how to eat. You're supposed to lick it, Emma said helpfully, before it melts. Vivian took a small bite. You're right. That's better. I'm always right. That's what Daddy says. I said you're right a lot. Not always. Same thing. They sat outside in the weak April sunshine, watching traffic pass, and slowly Vivian started to thaw. The tension left her shoulders. Color returned to her face. Thank you, she said quietly, for coming, for not making me do that alone. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to waste your day on this. It wasn't wasted. Mason met her eyes. You asked me to show up. I showed up. That's what people do. Not in my experience. Then you've known the wrong people. Emma had wandered to watch a dog across the street. Vivian watched her with something soft in her expression. She's wonderful, Vivian said. You're doing a good job. I'm doing a terrible job. She's in therapy and her mother thinks I'm unstable. Her mother's wrong. Is she? I dragged her to Iowa with no plan and no money. You brought her somewhere safe, somewhere you could catch your breath. Vivian turned to him. That's not instability. That's survival. Feels like failure. Because you're too close to it. She finally took another bite of ice cream. Can I tell you something? Sure. When Marcus broke up with me, I thought my life was over. Like I'd failed at the one thing that was supposed to prove I was normal. Getting married? Being chosen. Not for my money or my company or what I could do for someone's career, just chosen. For me. She shredded her napkin into tiny pieces. And then he stood in my apartment and told me I was too focused on my dying father, that I needed to get my priorities straight. What'd you do? I threw his ring at him, literally threw it. It bounced off his forehead. A tiny smile. Then I told him to get out. And when he left, I sat on my bathroom floor and cried for 3 hours. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing he ever did was leave, because it made me realize I'd been performing for years, playing the role of successful woman, and I was so tired. Emma ran back, chocolate smeared on her face. The dog's name is Biscuit, and he's 7 and he likes to swim. That's a good dog name, Vivian said seriously. I know. If I get a dog, I want to name him Pancake. Pancake's an excellent name. They drove back as the sun set, Emma falling asleep in the back seat, and Mason felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace, not happiness, not yet. Just the quiet relief of making it through a hard day with someone who understood. When they pulled into Willow Creek Lane, Vivian didn't immediately get out. Mason? Yeah? That promise you made. When we were kids. She stared straight ahead. Did you mean it? I was 10. I know, but did you mean it? He thought about the boy he'd been. Lonely and eager to please, about seeing Vivian crying by the creek because her mom had left and feeling like his heart might break. Yeah, he said quietly. I meant it. Vivian finally looked at him. Good, because I think I might need someone to keep that promise. Before he could respond, she was out of the car, walking toward her house, leaving Mason sitting in the driveway with a sleeping child and a chest full of feelings he had no idea what to do with. Emma stirred as he carried her inside. I like Vivian. Me too, baby. Are you going to marry her, like you promised? Go to sleep, Em. But as he tucked her into the sleeping bag, still no bed, still no money, he found himself thinking about that stupid plastic ring, about promises made by children who didn't understand what they were offering, and about what it might mean to keep them. The bed frame came from a garage sale 3 towns over. Mason found it on Craigslist for $40. A twin with chipped white paint and a headboard carved with someone else's kid's initials. He loaded it into his truck at dawn before Emma woke up, wanting it to be a surprise. What he didn't expect was Vivian standing in his driveway when he got back, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing paint-stained overalls. You're up early, he said, killing the engine. Couldn't sleep. She handed him a cup. What's in the truck? Bed for Em. Thought I'd surprise her. Vivian peered into the truck bed. You know that won't fit up your stairs, right? The landing's too narrow. Mason had not considered this. Shit. We'll take it apart. Bring it up in pieces. She set down her coffee. Where do you want it? You don't have to... Mason, where do you want it? They worked in quiet coordination, Vivian proving surprisingly capable with a screwdriver. She didn't complain about the heavy lifting or the narrow stairwell or when Mason dropped his end and nearly took out the banister. "Sorry," he muttered. "It's fine. I've got it." Emma appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Making noise, apparently," Mason said. "Sorry, baby. Go back to sleep." But Emma was already fully awake, staring at the bed frame pieces with growing excitement. "Is that for me?" "What do you think?" She threw herself at Mason's legs. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We still have to put it together." "I'll help." Emma grabbed a screwdriver that was far too big for her hands. Vivian smiled. "All right then, let's build a bed. Build a somt." It took 2 hours, multiple arguments about which piece went where, and Emma's constant commentary on everything they were doing wrong. But eventually, they had a functioning bed frame in the room with the window seat. Mason went to get the mattress from the truck, leaving Vivian and Emma alone upstairs. When he came back, he found them sitting on the window seat together, Emma chattering about her stuffed animals, while Vivian listened with the kind of attention most adults didn't give kids. And this is Princess Frog. But she's not really a princess. She's a scientist who got turned into a frog by a bad experiment, but she likes being a frog, so she doesn't want to change back. "That's a good story," Vivian said. "Smart princess." "My therapist says it's good that I give my toys complicated backstories. It means I'm processing." Emma pronounced the word carefully, like she'd been practicing. "Your therapist is very smart. She's okay. She asks a lot of questions." Emma tilted her head, studying Vivian. "Do you go to therapy?" "Emma," Mason warned. "It's fine." Vivian met Emma's curious gaze. "I used to. When things got hard." "Did it help?" "Sometimes. Sometimes it just helped to have someone listen." "That's what Daddy does. He's a good listener." Vivian glanced at Mason. "Yeah, he is." Something passed between them that made Mason's chest tight. He cleared his throat. "Mattress." "Right. Let's get this on the frame." They wrestled it up the stairs and onto the bed. Emma immediately climbed on, testing it with serious bounces. "It's perfect," she declared. "Best bed ever." "Glad you approve." Mason looked at Vivian. "Thanks for the help." "Any time." She checked her watch. "I should go. I have a call with my COO at 10. "On Saturday? Tech doesn't really do weekends." She headed for the stairs, then paused. "Hey, what are you guys doing tomorrow? For dinner?" "Probably mac and cheese from a box. Why?" "I'm making pot roast, too much for one person." She said it casually, but Mason was starting to recognize when she was performing casual. "You should come over, both of you." Emma gasped. "Can we, Daddy? Please?" "I don't want to impose. Oh, you're not. I'm inviting you." Vivian's eyes held his. "Say yes, Mason." "Okay, yeah, we'll come." After she left, Emma sprawled on her new bed with a satisfied sigh. "I really like her." "I know you do." "Do you like her?" "She's nice." "That's not what I asked." Mason sat on the edge of the bed. "What do you want me to say, Em?" "The truth." She rolled onto her stomach, chin propped on her hands. "Mommy says you're bad at telling the truth about feelings." "Mommy says a lot of things." "Is she wrong?" No, she wasn't wrong. Sarah had spent 10 years trying to get Mason to open up, to share what he was actually feeling instead of just saying he was fine. He'd failed at it then. Didn't seem like he'd gotten better. "I like Vivian," he said carefully. "She's an old friend who's going through a hard time, and we're helping each other, that's all." Emma gave him a look that said she didn't believe him but was too polite to push. "Okay, Daddy?" That night Mason lay awake thinking about Vivian's invitation, about the way she'd said his name, about how easy it had felt, the three of them building a bed together like some kind of family. Dangerous thoughts, the kind that got people hurt. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Emma called me today, said you got her a bed." He typed back, "Yeah, from a garage sale. It's solid. That's good." She sounded happy. She is. A pause. Then, "Are you doing okay?" "Really?" Mason stared at the question. The honest answer was complicated. He was broke and lost and living in a house that needed $10,000 of repairs he couldn't afford. But he was also sleeping better than he had in months. Emma was smiling again. And Vivian? Getting there, he typed. One day at a time. That's all any of us can do. Another pause. Mason? I'm sorry. For how things ended, for the things I said. He closed his eyes. Sarah had said a lot of things. That he was emotionally unavailable. That he'd given up on his dreams and expected her to be okay with it. That she couldn't watch him shrink himself anymore. All of it true. All of it painful. We both said things. Let's just focus on M. Okay. Tell her I love her. I will. He set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, wondering if you could ever really start over, or if you just dragged all your old failures with you into new situations. The next evening, Mason and Emma walked to Vivian's house carrying a bottle of wine he'd bought with money he absolutely should not have spent. Emma wore her favorite dress, purple with unicorns, and had insisted on bringing a drawing she'd made. What if she doesn't like it? Emma asked nervously. She'll love it. How do you know? Because you made it. Vivian answered the door in jeans and a soft sweater, hair loose around her shoulders, and Mason forgot how to form words for a second. Hi, she said, smiling. Come in. Her house was different from his. Where his was falling apart, hers was carefully maintained. Modern furniture, art on the walls, everything in its place. But it felt empty somehow, like a hotel room someone had tried to make homey. Emma thrust out her drawing. I made this for you. Vivian took it carefully. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall man, one small girl, one woman with long dark hair. They were holding hands under a yellow sun. It's us, Emma explained. At your house. See? Vivian's eyes went bright. This is beautiful. Can I hang it on my fridge? Really? Really? Emma beamed and ran off to explore while Vivian led Mason to the kitchen. The pot roast smelled incredible, the kind of home-cooked meal he hadn't had in years. You can cook, he said, surprised. Don't sound so shocked. It's just, you're a CEO. I figured you had people for this. I did, in Chicago. But cooking helps me think. She checked the oven. Plus, I got tired of eating takeout alone. Is that what you did? Before? Every night, at my desk, working until midnight. She pulled out the roast, perfectly browned. I haven't decided if this is better or worse. At least the loneliness is quieter here. Mason handed her the wine. I brought this. I don't know if it's any good. She looked at the label and smiled. It's perfect. They ate at her dining table, at actual plates, actual napkins, Emma using her best manners because Vivian had set the table nice. The food was incredible. Mason couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten something that hadn't come from a box. This is amazing, he said around a mouthful. Seriously, my dad taught me. He used to make this every Sunday. Vivian's smile was sad. Before he got sick, we'd talk about opening a restaurant together. Just a small place. Nothing fancy. You should do it. With what time? I'm barely holding my company together remotely. I thought you stepped down. As active CEO, I still own 60%. Still have board responsibilities. Still have 1,200 employees whose jobs depend on me making good decisions. She took a long drink of wine. Stepping down just means I feel guilty from a distance instead of up close. Emma spoke up. My daddy feels guilty too. About Mommy. Emma, Mason started. It's true. I heard you tell Aunt Jennifer that you ruined everything. The silence was excruciating. Mason wanted to disappear. Vivian reached across the table and squeezed his hand briefly. Guilt's a heavy thing to carry, especially when it's not all yours to hold. Feels like it is. Feelings lie sometimes. After dinner, Emma fell asleep on Vivian's couch, exhausted from exploring every room and asking approximately 8,000 questions. Mason carried her to the car while Vivian packed up leftovers. You don't have to do that, he said when he came back. I want to. Besides, I'll never eat all this. She handed him 2 containers. Lunch tomorrow, too. They stood in her doorway, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Thank you, Mason said. For tonight. It was nice, normal. Is that what this was? Vivian's voice was quiet. Normal? What else would it be? She looked at him for a long moment. I don't know, but it didn't feel normal. It felt like something else. Mason's heart kicked up. Vivian, I know, I'm not asking for anything. She wrapped her arms around herself. It's been a long time since I sat at a table with people and felt like I belonged there, instead of just hosting. You did belong, did I? Or was I just playing house with my neighbor's family? The question hung between them. Mason didn't have an answer that wouldn't complicate things. I should go, he said finally. Emma needs to get to bed. Disappointment flickered across Vivian's face. Right, of course. But as he turned to leave, she caught his arm. Mason, wait. He turned back. I'm going to see my dad on Tuesday. The facility called. He's been asking for me. Her hand trembled slightly. Would you come with me again? I know it's asking a lot, but yes. You didn't let me finish. Don't need to. The answer's yes. Relief washed over her. Thank you. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray, threatening rain. Mason dropped Emma at a neighbor's, Mrs. Henderson, who remembered him from childhood and seemed delighted to have a kid around again, and met Vivian in her driveway. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. You okay? He asked, climbing into the Mercedes. Define okay. They drove in silence for 20 minutes before Vivian spoke again. He called me last night at 3 a.m. Your dad? The facility let him use the phone. He was crying. Her voice cracked. Kept saying he couldn't find his house, that someone stole it. I tried to explain he was safe, that he lives there now, but he just got more upset. Jesus. They finally gave him something to calm down. But I could hear it, Mason, the fear in his voice. He didn't understand where he was or why I wasn't there. She gripped the steering wheel. And I'm an hour away in a house I don't even need, pretending I'm here to help him, when really I just ran away for my life. You didn't run away, didn't I? I quit my job, left my company, moved to the middle of nowhere to take care of your father, who doesn't even remember I exist half the time. The words burst out of her. What's the point, Mason? I gave up everything and he still doesn't know me. Mason let her words settle before responding. My mom had cancer at the end. Vivian glanced at him. She was in hospice for 6 weeks, drugged up on morphine, barely conscious. My dad spent every day there reading to her, books she loved, articles from the paper, grocery lists, anything. Did she hear him? I don't know. Maybe not. But he said it didn't matter, that he wasn't there because she could respond. He was there because leaving her alone felt wrong. Mason looked out the window. Your dad might not remember you, but you'll remember being there. And that matters. Vivian's eyes were wet. I'm scared. Of what? Of the day he looks at me and there's nothing, no recognition, no love, just emptiness. She wiped her face roughly. How do I survive that? 1 minute at a time. And with people who won't let you do it alone. She reached across the console and found his hand. Mason laced their fingers together and held on. The facility was having a good day. Bright sun through the windows, residents doing activities, music playing somewhere. Mr. Carter was in his room, dressed and sitting in his chair. Vivian, his face lit up. And young Mason, twice in 1 month. I'm popular. Hi, Daddy. Vivian kissed his cheek. How are you feeling? Good. Real good. They gave me applesauce for breakfast, the cinnamon kind. He gestured at Mason. Sit. Tell me what's happening in the real world. They talked for an hour. Mr. Carter was sharp today, asking about the house, about Mason's daughter, cracking jokes that actually landed. This was the man Mason remembered. Funny and kind, always ready with a story. Then, mid-sentence, something shifted. Mr. Carter's eyes went distant, confused. Where am I supposed to be? You're right here, Daddy. In your room. No, I have to. There's something. He stood abruptly, agitated. I'm late. She's waiting. Who's waiting? Vivian stood with him, hands out. Daddy, sit down. You're okay. Don't tell me I'm okay. You don't understand. He looked at Mason like he'd never seen him before. Who are you? Get out of my room. Mr. Carter, it's me, Mason, from next door. I don't know you. Get out. A nurse appeared, calm and efficient. Mr. Carter, let's take a walk. Would you like that? I want everyone to leave. They got him settled eventually, but not before he'd worked himself into tears, furious and scared and lost. Vivian stood frozen in the hallway while her father's sobs echoed from his room. Ms. Carter? The nurse touched her arm gently. This is normal. The agitation, the confusion, it's part of the disease. I know. He won't remember this. In 10 minutes, he'll be calm again. But I'll remember. Vivian's voice was hollow. I'll remember him scared of me. They drove home in silence. Vivian's hands were steady on the wheel, but Mason could see her jaw clenched, the muscle jumping. When they pulled into Willow Creek Lane, she didn't get out of the car. I can't do this, she said quietly. Yes, you can. No, I can't. I'm not strong enough. Mason turned to face her. You're the strongest person I know. I'm a coward. I ran from my company because it was hard. I ran from my engagement because it hurt. And I'm going to run from this too because watching him forget me is killing me. Then don't watch alone. Mason, I'm serious. You keep trying to do everything by yourself. Like asking for help is weakness. But it's not. He unbuckled his seatbelt, shifting to face her fully. Let someone help carry this. Why would you do that? You barely know me anymore. Because 20 years ago, a scared kid promised you wouldn't be lonely. And I'm tired of breaking promises. Vivian's face crumpled. Then she was crying, really crying, the kind of tears that came from months of holding everything in. Mason pulled her across the console and let her sob into his shoulder, not saying anything, just being there. When she finally pulled back, mascara streaked and nose red, she laughed shakily. I'm a mess. You're human. I got makeup all over your shirt. I've got worse on it. Emma once wiped an entire ice cream cone on this shoulder. That made her laugh for real. Thank you for coming today, for not running when things got hard. I'm not running anywhere. Something shifted in her expression. Mason, I need to tell you something. Okay. That night at dinner, when I said it felt like something else, I meant it. She took a shaky breath. I like having you around, you and Emma. I look forward to seeing you, and I know that's complicated because you're my neighbor and you're dealing with your own stuff, and I'm a disaster, but Mason kissed her. Not planned, not smooth, just leaned across the console and pressed his mouth to hers because she was spiraling and beautiful and breaking his heart. She froze for a second, then kissed him back. It was brief, gentle, and when they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. I shouldn't have done that, Mason said. Why not? Because you're vulnerable, because I'm your neighbor, because you're scared, Vivian finished. So am I. Terrified, actually. Then why are we doing this? I don't know. She touched his face, thumb brushing his jaw. But I don't want to stop. Mason closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. Every rational part of his brain said this was a bad idea. He was broke, barely keeping his life together. His daughter needed stability, not him starting something with their neighbor. But Vivian's hand was warm against his skin, and for the first time in years, he felt like someone saw him. Not the failure, not the struggling single dad, just Mason. We should talk about this, he said. We should. Figure out what this is. Definitely. Neither of them moved. Then Vivian's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and sighed. My COO, I have to take this. Go, I'll see you later. She hesitated, then kissed him once more, quick and sweet. Later? Mason watched her walk to her house, phone already pressed to her ear, slipping back into CEO mode. The shift was fascinating, shoulders straightening, voice sharpening, all that vulnerability tucked away. He sat in his truck, fingers touching his lips, wondering what the hell he'd just done. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Don't overthink it. He laughed and typed back. Too late. Same. But maybe that's okay. Maybe. Mason? Yeah? I'm glad you're here and next door in my life. However this works. He stared at the message, chest tight with feelings he wasn't ready to name. Me too, he sent back. That night, Emma asked why he was smiling at his phone. I'm not smiling. You are too. You look happy-sad again. There's no such thing as happy-sad. Yes, there is. It's when good things make you scared. She climbed into his lap. Are you scared of Vivian? What? No. Then why do you look like that when you talk about her? Mason hugged his daughter, marveling at her ability to see right through him. Because sometimes good things are complicated. Therapy says complicated is okay, as long as you talk about it. Your therapist is very wise. I know, Emma yawned. Can Vivian come to dinner again? She's nice and she listens good. Well? What? She listens well. That's what I said. The next few days fell into a new rhythm. Vivian started coming over most evenings after her work calls ended. Sometimes she'd help Mason with repairs, sometimes they'd just sit on the porch while Emma played in the yard, talking about nothing and everything. She told him about her company, about the pressure of being a woman in tech, about board members who questioned every decision. He told her about the construction business that failed, about marriage counseling that came too late, about the guilt of not being enough. They didn't kiss again. Both of them dancing around what had happened in the car like it might disappear if they didn't acknowledge it. Then came the storm. Mason was replacing the kitchen sink when the sky opened up. Not gentle rain. Violent, wind-driven sheets that turned the world gray. Thunder that shook the windows. Lightning that lit up the whole house. Emma hated storms. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, clutching her stuffed dinosaur, eyes wide with fear. Hey, baby, it's okay. Just noise. It's loud. I know. But we're safe inside. A crack of thunder made her whimper. Mason pulled her close, feeling her shake. Then someone knocked. He opened the door to find Vivian drenched, holding a covered dish, rain pouring off her in rivers. I made soup, she said. Thought you might want some. You walked through this? It's just rain. Vivian, you're soaked. Can I come in? He pulled her inside. She was shivering, hair plastered to her head, that expensive sweater ruined. Why didn't you call? I would have come over. I wanted to be here. She looked at Emma. Storms are scary. Nobody should be scared alone. And just like that, Mason fell a little bit in love with her. He found her dry clothes. His flannel that hung huge on her, sweatpants she had to roll 6 times. She looked ridiculous and perfect. They ate soup on the floor in the living room because the kitchen table was covered in pipes. Emma nestled between them, gradually relaxing as thunder rumbled. My mom used to tell me thunder was just clouds bowling, Vivian said quietly. Stupid, but it helped. What happened to her? Emma asked. Your mom? Vivian stiffened. Mason caught her eye, ready to redirect, but she shook her head slightly. She left when I was little, decided being a wife and mother wasn't what she wanted. Did it hurt? Yeah, a lot. My mommy didn't leave, but sometimes I wish she'd visit more. Emma's voice was small. Does that make me bad? No, baby. That makes you honest. Vivian pulled her closer. Missing people is hard, even when they're still around. They sat there as the storm raged outside, 3 people who'd all been left in different ways, finding comfort in each other. Eventually, Emma fell asleep. Mason carried her upstairs while Vivian cleaned up the soup bowls. When he came back down, she was standing at the window, watching rain streak the glass. You okay? He asked. I lied earlier. About what? Why I came over. It wasn't about the soup. She turned to face him. I was sitting alone in my house, and the storm started, and all I could think was that I didn't want to be alone, that there were people next door who might actually want me around. Mason crossed to her. We do want you around. Even though I'm a mess? Even though my life is falling apart? Your life isn't falling apart. You're just reorganizing the pieces. She laughed softly. Is that what we're calling it? That's what I'm calling mine. Might as well call yours the same thing. The rain hammered the roof. Lightning flickered. I'm scared, Vivian whispered. Of the storm? Of this. You. The way you make me feel like maybe I don't have to do everything alone. Mason cupped her face in his hands. You don't. I don't know how to do that. Depend on someone. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out together. This kiss was different. Slower. Deeper. Vivian sat fisted in his shirt and Mason pulled her closer, both of them seeking shelter in each other. When they finally broke apart, Vivian rested her forehead against his. This is crazy, she breathed. Probably. We barely know each other anymore. I know you kept a plastic ring for 20 years. I know you cry during ice cream. I know you'd rather fix something than ask for help. That's not the same as knowing someone. Isn't it? She pulled back to look at him. What are we doing, Mason? I don't know, but I don't want to stop. What about Emma, your ex-wife? The fact that I'm leaving eventually? Are you? Leaving? Vivian hesitated. I don't know. My company's in Chicago. My life is there. Is it? Or is that just where your stuff is? The question landed hard. Vivian stepped out of his arms, wrapping herself in his too big flannel. I can't stay in Whitfield forever. There's nothing here for me except my dad. And he's... Her voice broke. He's disappearing. What happens when he's gone? Then you decide what comes next. It's not that simple. Why not? Because people depend on me. My employees, my investors, my board. What about you? Mason asked quietly. What do you depend on? Vivian stared at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. I don't know, she whispered. I've spent so long being what everyone else needs that I don't know what I need anymore. Thunder cracked overhead and she flinched. Mason pulled her back into his arms. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. They stood there while the storm raged, holding each other, both of them scared and broken, and somehow less alone than they'd been in years. Vivian stayed that night. Not planned, not discussed, just happened. The storm kept raging, and somewhere around midnight, Mason found her asleep on his couch, still wearing his clothes, and he couldn't bring himself to wake her. He covered her with a blanket and sat in the chair across from her, watching her sleep. She looked younger like this, unguarded. The CEO mask completely gone. His phone buzzed. Sarah, of course. Emma said there's a woman staying over? Mason's stomach dropped. He typed carefully. A friend. She got caught in the storm. What friend? Someone from high school. Lives next door. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Is this serious? It's complicated. That's not an answer, Mason. He looked at Vivian, chest rising and falling in sleep, and tried to figure out what the truth even was. I don't know what it is, he finally typed. But Emma likes her. She's good with her. That's not what I asked. I know. Be careful. Emma's already been through enough. The words stung because they were fair. Emma had watched her parents' marriage dissolve in real time, had moved 3 times in 6 months, had a therapist she saw twice a week to process trauma that shouldn't exist in a 4-year-old's life. I know, he sent back. I'm being careful. But was he? Or was he so starved for connection that he was dragging his daughter into something that would blow up in all their faces? Vivian stirred on his couch. Her eyes opened, unfocused, then found him. Hey, she said, voice rough with sleep. What time is it? Almost 1. She sat up, blanket falling away. I should go. Storm's still pretty bad. I can make it next door. Or you could stay. The words came out before he could stop them. Vivian looked at him for a long moment. Mason, what are we doing? I wish I knew. Your ex-wife texted you. I saw your face. Emma told her you were here, and she's worried. She's protective. There's a difference. Is there? Vivian stood, started folding the blanket with precise movements. Because from where I'm sitting, she's right to worry. I'm a mess. My dad's dying. I don't even know if I'm staying in Iowa, and you're... What? I'm what? You're trying to rebuild your life. You don't need my chaos added to it. Mason stood too. What if I want your chaos? You don't know what you're saying, don't I? He crossed to her. Vivian, I've spent the last 2 years feeling like I was drowning, like everything I touched turned to shit. And then you showed up next door, and for the first time in forever, I can breathe. That's not fair. What's not fair? Putting that on me. I can't be someone's life raft. I can barely keep my own head above water. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to just be here. I don't know how to do that. The words burst out of her. Every relationship I've ever had, people wanted something. My company, my money, my connections. And I'm so tired of being used that I don't know how to let someone in who doesn't want anything. You think I don't want anything? I think you want someone to make you feel less alone. And I can't be that person, Mason, not when I'm still figuring out who I am without all the bullshit. The silence stretched between them. Outside, rain still hammered the roof. You're right, Mason said finally. This is too fast, too complicated. Relief and disappointment warred on Vivian's face. Yeah, but I'm not sorry for the kiss, for asking you to stay, for any of it. Mason, I know we need to slow down, figure things out. But don't disappear on me, okay? We're still neighbors, still friends. Vivian's laugh was shaky. Friends who kiss during thunderstorms? If that's all this can be right now, then yeah. She studied him, and he could see her walls trying to rebuild themselves. See her retreating into that safe, controlled space where she didn't have to risk anything. Then she crossed the distance between them and kissed him, gentle, brief. A promise or a goodbye, he couldn't tell which. Friends? She whispered against his mouth. We'll try friends. She left before he could respond, disappearing into the dying storm. Mason stood at the window and watched her light click on next door. His phone buzzed again. Not Sarah this time. Vivian. I'm not good at friends. Neither am I, he sent back. This is going to get messy. Probably. I'm scared. Mason stared at those two words for a long time before responding. Me too. But maybe that's okay. No response came. He went to bed alone, listening to rain fade to drizzle, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life or dodged a bullet. Morning brought weak sunlight and Emma singing in her room. Mason made pancakes from a box mix, trying not to think about Vivian or the way she'd looked at him before she left. Is Vivian coming for breakfast? Emma asked, appearing in her pajamas. Not today, baby. Why not? She's busy. Doing what? Work stuff. Adult things. Emma gave him that look again. The one that said she knew he was lying but was too polite to call him out. They ate in silence, Emma kicking her feet against her chair until she said, Mommy called last night. Mason's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. She did? She wanted to know about Vivian. If she was nice. If you were happy. What did you tell her? The truth. That Vivian's really nice and you smile more now and I like having her around. Emma took a bite of pancake. Mommy got quiet after that. Emma, you don't have to report to Mommy about what happens here. I know, but she asks, and I don't want to lie. She looked up at him. Is it bad that I told her? No, baby, it's not bad. Being honest is good. Then why do you look sad? Because his 4-year-old was caught between parents who couldn't figure their shit out. Because he'd kissed a woman he had no business kissing. Because everything felt like it was balanced on a knife's edge and one wrong move would send it all crashing down. I'm not sad, just thinking. About Vivian? Among other things. Do you love her? The question knocked the air out of him. What? Do you love her, like you loved Mommy? Em, it's not that simple. Why not? You like her, she likes you. That's love. That's part of it, but there's more to it than that. Like what? How did you explain adult relationships to a 4-year-old? The complications, the baggage, the fear of getting hurt again? Like figuring out if you want the same things, Mason said carefully. If your lives fit together? If you're ready to let someone in. Are you ready? I don't know. Emma considered this. Therapy says it's okay to not know things, as long as you're trying to figure them out. Your therapist is very smart. I know. Can I have more pancakes? That afternoon, Mason was replacing rotten boards on the back porch when he heard Vivian's car leave. Watched it disappear down Willow Creek Lane without knowing where she was going or when she'd be back. His phone stayed silent all day. By evening, he was convinced she'd decided this whole thing was a mistake, that she'd gone back to Chicago, or at least back to the safety of her empty house next door, and whatever they'd started was over before it really began. Then, around 8, headlights swept into her driveway. Mason told himself not to look, told himself to give her space, respect the boundaries they'd agreed on. He looked anyway. Vivian got out of her car carrying grocery bags. Lots of them. She struggled to her door, dropped her keys twice, finally got inside. 10 minutes later, she texted, I bought ingredients for Christmas cookies. In May. I don't know what's wrong with me. Mason smiled despite himself. Christmas cookies in May sounds perfect. I have enough dough to make 8 dozen. This is insane. Want help? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Yes. But also I'm trying to do the friends with boundaries thing, and inviting you over to bake cookies feels like the opposite of boundaries. We can bake with the door open. Very friendly. Very boundaried. That's not a word. It is now. Another long pause. Come over. Bring Emma. I have cutters shaped like trees and snowflakes, and I'm going to use them in May because apparently I'm having a breakdown. Mason laughed out loud. Be there in 10. Emma was thrilled. She'd been asking about Vivian all day and practically dragged Mason across the yard. Vivian's kitchen was chaos, flour everywhere, butter wrappers on the counter, 3 different kinds of sprinkles. I went to the store for milk, Vivian said by way of explanation, and then I saw the cookie aisle and something broke in my brain. When was the last time you baked Christmas cookies? Mason asked. With my dad. Before he got sick. Her voice went quiet. We had this tradition. Every December we'd make cookies for the neighbors. He'd do the cutting, I'd do the decorating. We'd argue about whether to use green or red frosting. What did you pick? Both. We always picked both. She looked at the mess around her. This is stupid. It's May. Nobody wants Christmas cookies in May. Emma climbed onto a stool. I do. I love Christmas cookies. Yeah? Yeah? Can I help decorate? Vivian's smile was genuine. Absolutely. They spent the next 2 hours covered in flour and sugar. Emma took decorating very seriously, giving each cookie elaborate backstories. The snowflake was a princess. The tree was her castle. The star was her best friend who lived on a cloud. Mason and Vivian worked side by side, their hands brushing when they reached for the same cutter. Every touch felt electric and deliberately casual at the same time. So, Vivian said, rolling out more dough. Sarah called me today. Mason's hand stilled. She what? Called my cell. I don't know how she got the number. What did she say? That she wanted to make sure I understood Emma's situation, that she's been through a lot, that she needs stability. Vivian's voice was carefully neutral. That you have a tendency to make impulsive decisions when you're stressed. Heat flooded Mason's face. She had no right. She had every right. Emma's her daughter, too. What did you tell her? The truth. That I'm not trying to replace anyone. That Emma seems happy. That you're doing your best. Vivian met his eyes. And that whatever's happening between us isn't about Emma. It's separate. Is it, though? Isn't it? Mason looked at his daughter, carefully piping frosting onto a cookie, completely absorbed. I don't know. Everything in my life involves Emma. I can't compartmentalize. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Vivian set down her rolling pin. I'm asking if we can figure this out without promises neither of us can keep, without pretending we have answers we don't have. That's terrifying. I know. Emma held up a cookie. Look, this one's you, Daddy. See the smile? Mason looked. The gingerbread man had a lopsided frosting smile and way too many sprinkles. It's perfect, Em. This one's Vivian. Emma held up a gingerbread woman with elaborate frosting hair. She's beautiful and sad, but also happy sometimes. Vivian's eyes went bright. That's very observant, Emma. I'm good at noticing. My therapist says so. They finished baking around 10. Emma had crashed on Vivian's couch, sticky with frosting and sugar, completely content. Mason started cleaning while Vivian packed cookies into containers. I'm keeping 1 dozen, she said. The rest are for the neighbors. Want to help me deliver them tomorrow? In May? In May. People are going to think you're crazy. Let them. I made Christmas cookies because my dad can't anymore, and I needed to remember what it felt like when things were simple. She sealed another container. If that makes me crazy, fine. Mason crossed to her, took the container from her hands, set it down. You're not crazy. No? No. You're grieving. There's a difference. Is there? Her voice cracked. Because I can't tell anymore. Some days I'm fine. Working, managing things from here, visiting Dad, and then something stupid happens like seeing cookie cutters, and I fall apart. That's not falling apart. That's being human. I don't know how to be human, Mason. I've been performing for so long that when I stop, I don't know what's left. He pulled her into his arms. She resisted for a second, then melted against him. I'm scared, she whispered into his chest. Of what? Of getting used to this. To you. To feeling like maybe I don't have to do everything alone, because what happens when it ends? Who says it has to end? Everything ends. Relationships, careers, people. Her hands fisted in his shirt. My dad's ending right in front of me and I can't stop it. What makes you different? Mason pulled back enough to look at her. Nothing makes me different. I could leave. I could hurt you. I could turn out to be just like everyone else who wanted something from you. Then why should I let you in? Because maybe the risk is worth it. Maybe being alone and safe is worse than being with someone and scared. Vivian's laugh was wet. That's a terrible sales pitch. I know, but it's honest. She looked up at him, mascara smudged, eyes red, and he'd never seen anyone more beautiful. I don't know how to do this, she said. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. What if we can't? Then at least we tried. She kissed him then, different from before. This one felt like surrender, like trust, like maybe, possibly, the beginning of something real. When they broke apart, Emma was watching from the couch. Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? She asked, no preamble. Vivian laughed, embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe? Good. I like you. You should stay. It's not that simple, sweetie. Why not? You like us. We like you. You should just stay. 4-year-old logic remained airtight. Mason carried Emma home while Vivian stayed in her doorway, watching them go. When he looked back, she lifted her hand in a small wave. His phone buzzed as he tucked Emma in. Thank you for tonight, for everything, anytime. Mason? Yeah? I think I'm falling for you. And it's terrifying. His heart stopped, started, raced. Good, he sent back, because I've been falling for you since you showed up with that casserole. We're idiots. Probably. But maybe that's okay too. The next few weeks shifted something fundamental. They stopped pretending to be just neighbors, stopped trying to maintain boundaries that felt artificial. Vivian started having dinner with them most nights. Sometimes she'd cook. Sometimes Mason would. Sometimes they'd just order pizza and eat it on the floor while Emma narrated stories with her action figures. She came with them to Emma's therapy appointments, sitting in the waiting room with Mason, both of them anxious about what the therapist might say about the new person in Emma's life. When they finally met with Dr. Chen together, she was surprisingly unbothered. Emma talks about Vivian a lot, Dr. Chen said. In positive terms, she seems to provide stability. Even though Mason struggled for words. Whatever this is? Even though you're figuring things out? Yes. Kids need adults who are honest about not having all the answers. Emma's processing a lot of change. Having another caring adult in her life isn't harmful. It's helpful. Vivian exhaled. So we're not screwing her up? You're both showing up. That's what matters. They delivered the Christmas cookies to every house on Willow Creek Lane in May, in Iowa, and people loved it. Mrs. Henderson cried. Mr. Thompson made a joke about global warming. The Kowalskis asked for the recipe. This was a good idea, Mason said, walking back to their houses. It was a crazy idea. Sometimes those are the best ones. Emma ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, completely happy in the moment. She's doing better, Vivian observed. Yeah, she is. Because of the stability? The therapy? Or because we stopped pretending everything was fine? Maybe all of it. Vivian's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression shuddered. It's my COO. I need to take this. Go ahead. Mason watched her walk to her house, phone pressed to her ear, and felt a familiar anxiety creep back. She still had a life in Chicago, still had responsibilities pulling her away. And eventually, she'd have to choose. That night, Vivian didn't come over for dinner, or the next night, or the one after that. Mason told himself not to worry. She was busy, work stuff. It was fine, but her lights stayed on late every night, and when he texted, her responses were short, distracted. Everything okay? Yeah, just busy. Want to talk about it? Not really. Sorry. Emma noticed, of course. Why isn't Vivian coming over? She's working. Is she mad at us? No, baby. Just busy. That's what Mommy used to say before she left. The words hit Mason like a fist. Vivian's not leaving. But he didn't know if that was true. On the fourth night, he knocked on her door. She answered, looking exhausted, hair in a messy bun, glasses he'd never seen her wear, laptop open on the couch behind her with spreadsheets visible. Hey, she said. Sorry, I've been busy. I know. Mason shoved his hands in his pockets. What's going on, Vivian? My board is pushing for me to come back to Chicago, full time. They're worried about the company direction. His stomach dropped. What did you tell them? That I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself. They want an answer by next week. What do you want? I don't know that either. Mason looked past her at the spreadsheets, the papers scattered everywhere, the half-drunk coffee cups. This was her other life. The one that existed before Willow Creek, before him. If you go back, is it permanent? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Her voice cracked. Mason, I built that company from nothing. 1,200 people depend on me. I can't just walk away. I'm not asking you to walk away. I'm asking what you want. I want both. I want my company, and I want this, and I want my dad to not be dying, and I want to not have to choose. She was crying now. But I can't have both, and I don't know how to choose. Mason pulled her into his arms. She fought it for a second, then collapsed against him. What if you choose wrong? She whispered. What if you choose right? I don't know which is which anymore. They stood in her doorway, holding each other, while her laptop chimed with another email she'd have to answer. I can't ask you to stay, Mason said quietly. That's not fair to either of us. I know. But I want you to. I want you to choose this. Choose us. That's not asking. That's being honest. Vivian pulled back to look at him. What if I choose you and it doesn't work? What if I give up everything and we fall apart in 6 months? What if we don't? That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Mason cupped her face. I can't promise you forever, Vivian. I can't promise we won't screw this up. But I can promise I'll show up. Every day. Even when it's hard. That might not be enough. Then tell me what would be. She closed her eyes. I don't know. Mason kissed her forehead and stepped back. Think about it. Really think. And whatever you decide, I'll understand. He walked back to his house, chest tight, feeling like he was losing something before he'd ever really had it. Emma was still awake, sitting at the window. Is Vivian leaving? She asked. Maybe. Because of her job? Yeah. Will we see her again? I don't know, baby. Emma climbed into his lap, and they sat together at the window, watching Vivian's light burn late into the night. 3 days passed without word from Vivian. Her car sat in the driveway, but Mason never saw her leave. Lights burned in her house at all hours. Once, at 2 a.m, he watched her shadow pace past the window, phone pressed to her ear. Emma asked about her every day. Can we bring her cookies? She's busy, Em. Can we bring her dinner? I don't think she wants to be bothered. Can we at least check if she's okay? Mason looked at his daughter's worried face and felt something crack in his chest. Yeah, baby, we can check. They walked over together that afternoon. Emma carried a drawing she'd made. Vivian standing under a rainbow with the words, "We miss you," written in crooked letters. Mason knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. Finally, the door opened. Vivian stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair unbrushed, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Hey, Mason said softly. Can we come in? She hesitated, then stepped back. The house was a disaster, papers everywhere, coffee cups on every surface. Her laptop open to what looked like financial reports. Emma walked straight to Vivian and held up the drawing. I made you this, so you'd know we're thinking about you. Vivian took it with shaking hands. It's beautiful, Emma. Thank you. Are you okay? You look sad. I am a little sad. Do you want to talk about it? Talking helps. That's what therapy says. Despite everything, Vivian smiled. Your therapist is very wise. Emma climbed onto the couch, clearly settling in. I'll wait here while you and Daddy talk. I'm good at waiting. Mason followed Vivian into the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, looking defeated. I'm going back, she said without preamble. The words landed like a punch. To Chicago? The board gave me an ultimatum. Come back full-time or sell my shares. They're done with remote leadership. When? Friday, 3 days. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I already called the moving company. What about your dad? There's a facility in Chicago. I'll transfer him there. It's supposed to be one of the best in the country. Supposed to be. You haven't seen it. I don't have time to see it, Mason. I'm trying to save a company I spent 7 years building. By leaving your dad? By leaving... He stopped. By leaving you? Vivian's laugh was bitter. We've known each other 6 weeks. That's not enough time to throw away my entire career. I never asked you to throw it away. Didn't you? Every time you looked at me like maybe I could have something different, like this town and your daughter and you were somehow enough to replace everything I built? That's not fair. None of this is fair. She was crying now. You think I want to leave? You think I want to go back to a life that makes me miserable? But I have responsibilities, Mason. People depending on me. I can't just abandon them. What about abandoning us? The question hung in the air. Vivian's face crumpled. That's not what I'm doing. Isn't it? You're packing up and leaving without even trying to figure out another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. You're just too scared to look for it. Don't you dare... You're terrified, Mason continued, of choosing wrong, of being vulnerable, of admitting you might want something other than what you've spent your whole life chasing, so you're running back to what's safe. Safe? You think Chicago is safe? Going back to a job that nearly broke me is safe? Safer than staying here and risking your heart. Yeah, Vivian stared at him, chest heaving. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I did the same thing with Sarah, stayed in a dying marriage because leaving felt too scary, too uncertain, and you know what? I regret it. Not because I should have stayed, but because I wasted years being afraid instead of honest. This isn't the same. It's exactly the same. You're choosing what you know over what you want, because at least if you fail at the job, you can blame the board, the market, something external. But if you stay here and we don't work out, that's on you, and that's terrifying. Stop it. Why? Because I'm right? Because you're making this harder than it already is. Vivian wiped her face roughly. You think I haven't thought about staying? About telling the board to go to hell and building something here? I've thought about it every single day, but I'm 30 years old and I've spent my entire adult life building Carter Tech. That company is who I am. No, it's not. It's what you do. There's a difference. Easy for you to say. You don't have a billion-dollar company hanging in the balance. Mason flinched. You're right. I just have a 4-year-old daughter who started asking if everyone she cares about eventually leaves. No big deal. The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. That's not fair, Vivian whispered. None of this is fair. You said it yourself. Mason ran his hands through his hair. Look, I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm really not. But Emma's already been through so much and she's attached to you. So if you're leaving, I need to know now so I can help her deal with it. I don't want to hurt her. Then don't leave. It's not that simple. Why not? Because staying means giving up everything I worked for. Or maybe it means finally getting what you actually want. Vivian opened her mouth, closed it. Tears streamed down her face. From the living room, Emma called out, Are you fighting? You sound like you're fighting. Mason took a breath, forced his voice steady. We're just talking, Em. Loud talking. Yeah, loud talking. He looked at Vivian, both of them exhausted and raw. I should go, he said quietly. Mason, no, it's fine. You've made your decision. I respect that. He headed for the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think you're wrong. I think you're choosing the comfortable cage over the scary freedom. But it's your life. Don't do that. Don't make me the villain because I won't give up my career for a man I barely know. I'm not making you the villain. I'm just saying goodbye. Emma jumped off the couch as he entered. Are we leaving already? Yeah, baby. Vivian has a lot of work to do. Can we come back tomorrow? Mason looked at Vivian. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms wrapped around herself, looking destroyed. I don't think so, Em. But I want to say goodbye properly. If she's leaving Friday, I need to say goodbye. Em, please, Daddy. It's important. Vivian knelt down to Emma's level. You can come say goodbye any time, sweetie. I promise. Do you really promise? Because adults break promises a lot. The words hit like a slap. Vivian's face went pale. I won't break this one, she said softly. But Mason could see she was already breaking it. That night, Emma cried herself to sleep. The kind of deep, hiccuping sobs that came from a hurt she didn't know how to name. Everyone leaves, she kept saying. Mommy left. Now Vivian's leaving. Everyone always leaves. I'm not leaving, baby. I'm right here. But you will. Eventually. Everyone does. Mason held his daughter and felt his heart shatter. This was his fault. He'd let Vivian into their lives too fast. Let Emma get attached. Let himself believe something that was too good to be true. His phone buzzed around midnight. Vivian. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help. But I am. He almost didn't respond, almost just let it sit there unanswered as some kind of petty revenge. Me too, he finally sent. For what? For hoping you'd choose us. That was unfair. Mason, don't. It's fine. You have to do what's right for you. I get it. Do you, though? Because you seem pretty angry. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. I never meant to hurt Emma. I know, but you did anyway. That's the thing about caring about people. You can hurt them without meaning to. What do I do? I don't know, Vivian. That's not my call. I can't give up my company. Then don't. But own the choice. Don't pretend it's the only option when it's just the easier one. No response came. Thursday morning, Mason woke to find Vivian's car gone. Packed boxes visible through her windows. She was really doing this. Emma saw it too. She's leaving without saying goodbye? I'm sure she'll come back before Friday. But Thursday passed with no sign of her. Mason tried to stay busy, fixing the porch railing that had been on his list for weeks. Anything to not think about the empty house next door. His phone rang around dinner. Not Vivian. The memory care facility. Mr. Reed, this is Cedar Rapids Memory Care. We're trying to reach Vivian Carter. Her father has taken a turn. Mason's stomach dropped. What kind of turn? He's asking for her. Quite agitated. We've tried her cell, but she's not answering. I'll find her. What's going on? His vitals are stable, but he's very confused, asking about his wife, his house. He's convinced he needs to go home right away. The nurse's voice was kind but concerned. These episodes can be hard on family members. We thought she should know. Mason hung up and immediately called Vivian, straight to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. Damn it, Vivian, pick up. He tried texting. Your dad's facility called. He's asking for you. Call me. No response. He waited 10 minutes, anxiety building, then made a decision. Em, get your shoes. We're going for a drive. Where? To find Vivian. She was at the facility parking lot, sitting in her car with her head on the steering wheel. Mason pulled in beside her, and she looked up with red, swollen eyes. He got out, knocked on her window. She rolled it down. How did you know I was here? The facility called me when they couldn't reach you. Your dad's asking for you. I know. I've been sitting here for an hour trying to make myself go in. Why? Because I called the Chicago facility this morning to arrange the transfer. Her voice broke. And they asked about his condition, his prognosis, how long I expected him to live. Mason's chest tightened. The woman on the phone said they have a 6-month minimum for new admissions to ensure continuity of care. Vivian laughed bitterly, like that's not just code for we don't want patients who are about to die. Vivian, the doctor here told me last week he probably has less than 6 months, maybe 3 if his decline continues at this rate. She looked at Mason with devastated eyes. I'm moving him to a place that won't even accept him because I'm too much of a coward to tell my board no. Then don't move him. I have to. I'm going back to Chicago. Do you? Are you really? The movers are coming tomorrow morning. That's not what I asked. Vivian stared at him. I don't know anymore. I don't know anything. Emma appeared at Mason's hip. Hi, Vivian. Hi, sweetie. Are you going to see your daddy? He probably misses you. I don't know if he remembers me today. That's okay. You remember him. That's what matters. Emma climbed into Vivian's lap through the open window. My therapist says sometimes we have to be brave for people who can't be brave for themselves. Vivian hugged Emma tight. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. Adults just don't listen. Mason watched them, heart in his throat. Go inside, Vivian. See your dad. We'll wait here. You don't have to. We'll wait. She carried Emma out of the car and set her down gently, then walked toward the facility entrance, shoulders squared like she was heading into battle. Mason and Emma waited in the parking lot. 45 minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, Vivian emerged. She walked straight to Mason and collapsed against him. He didn't know me, she said into his chest. At first, he called me Rachel, my mom's name, told me not to leave him again. I'm sorry. But then something shifted, like a light turning on, and he looked at me and said, Viv, my Viv. And I said, yes, Daddy, it's me. She was crying now, and he asked if I was okay, if I was happy. Like, even with his brain falling apart, he was still worried about me. Mason held her tighter. I told him about you, about Emma, about how I'd come home and found something I didn't know I needed. Vivian pulled back to look at him. And you know what he said? What? Don't be stupid like your mother. Don't run from good things because you're scared. Mason's throat went tight. Pretty good advice. He doesn't remember giving it. 5 minutes later, he forgot I was even there. But he said it, and he's right. She looked at Emma. I've been so scared of choosing wrong that I was about to choose something I know makes me miserable. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not moving my dad, and I'm calling the movers tomorrow to cancel. She took a shaky breath. The board can fire me if they want. Let them. I'll figure it out. You're sure? No. But I'm done pretending certainty is the same as happiness. Emma tugged on Vivian's hand. Does this mean you're staying? For now, I still have things to figure out, but I'm not leaving Friday. Emma threw her arms around Vivian's waist. Good, because I wasn't done being friends with you. That night, Vivian called her COO. Mason sat beside her for moral support while she delivered the news. She was calm, direct, professional. I understand this isn't what the board wants to hear, Karen, but I'm not coming back to Chicago full time. My father is dying, and I need to be here. Mason could hear the tinny voice on the other end, urgent and frustrated. I know this creates complications. That's why I'm proposing we transition my role completely. I'll maintain my shares and board seat, but I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. More protests from the other end. Karen, listen, you've been running the company for 6 months anyway. You know the clients, the strategy, the team. You don't need me in the office. You need me to get out of the way and let you lead. A long pause, then quieter conversation. I'll make the announcement tomorrow. We'll do this right. Proper press release, internal memo, the whole thing. But my decision is final. She hung up and sat very still. How do you feel? Mason asked. Terrified. Relieved. Like I just jumped off a cliff. She looked at him. Did I just make the biggest mistake of my life? I don't know. Did you? Very helpful. Thanks. You want me to tell you it'll all work out? That this is the right choice and everything will be perfect? That would be nice. Can't do it. This might blow up in your face. You might regret it. You might wake up in 6 months and wish you'd gone back to Chicago. Again, super helpful. Mason took her hand. But you'll wake up knowing you made the choice that felt right, not the one that felt safe. That counts for something. Does it? I think so. Yeah. Vivian leaned her head on his shoulder. I need to tell my dad, while he can still understand. Want company? Always. They went the next morning, all 3 of them. Mr. Carter was having a good day. Alert. Present. Actually smiling when they walked in. There's my girl, and the neighbors. He waved them to chairs. Sit, sit. I'm feeling good today, like my brain decided to cooperate. Vivian settled beside him, taking his hand. Daddy, I have something to tell you. You're staying, I can tell by your face. How? Because you look lighter, less like you're carrying the world. He squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, honey. I haven't even told you what I decided. Don't need to. You chose yourself. That's all that matters. He looked at Mason. You're part of this, aren't you? Sir? Don't sir me. You're the reason she's smiling again. First time in years I've seen her smile like she means it. Dad, Vivian protested. It's true. That finance fellow made you smile like you were supposed to, like it was on your schedule. This one makes you smile like you can't help it. He patted Mason's hand. Take care of her. She acts tough, but she's soft underneath. I will. Good. Now someone tell me what year it is. I keep losing track. They They spent 2 hours with him, the conversation meandering through decades. Sometimes he was present, sometimes he drifted. But the moments of clarity were precious. When they left, Mr. Carter hugged Vivian tight. I love you, Viv. Even when I don't remember your name, I love you. You know that, right? I know, Daddy. Good. Don't forget it. They walked to the parking lot in silence. Emma ran ahead, chasing a butterfly. He's getting worse, Vivian said quietly. Yeah. I made the right choice, staying. Yeah. So why do I still feel scared? Mason pulled her close. Because the hard part's just beginning, and you know it. She was right to be scared. The next few weeks were brutal. The press release about her stepping down made headlines. Tech blogs speculated about why a 30-year-old CEO would walk away from a billion-dollar company. Investors called constantly. The board demanded meetings she attended remotely, each one more contentious than the last. And through it all, her father continued to fade. Some days he knew her. Most days he didn't. The facility called multiple times a week about episodes, confusion, agitation. Once, he fell trying to leave his room in the middle of the night, convinced he needed to pick up Vivian from school. Mason watched her carry it all with a kind of quiet devastation that broke his heart. She'd arrive at his house after visiting her dad, emotionally hollowed out, and just sit on his couch while Emma chattered about her day. You don't have to stay, he told her one night after Emma had gone to bed. Where else would I go? Home. To process. To be alone. I've been alone enough. She looked at him with exhausted eyes. Can I just be here? I don't need to talk. I just need to not be by myself. So she stayed. Night after night. Sometimes on the couch. Sometimes in his bed, both of them fully clothed, just holding each other while she cried. They didn't talk about what they were. Didn't define the relationship. Mason figured they were too busy surviving to label anything. Then came the phone call at 4 a.m. Mason knew before he answered. You always know those calls. Mr. Reed, this is Cedar Rapids Memory Care. I'm so sorry, but Mr. Carter passed away peacefully in his sleep about an hour ago. We've been trying to reach Miss Carter, but I'll tell her she's here. He hung up and looked at Vivian, awake now, staring at him with knowing eyes. He's gone, she said. Not a question. Yeah, I'm so sorry. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat very still, processing. I should go there, make arrangements, call people. Her voice was mechanical. I'll come with you. You don't have to... Vivian, I'm coming with you. She nodded numbly. They drove to Cedar Rapids in the pre-dawn darkness. Emma sleeping in the back seat, Vivian staring out the window at nothing. When they arrived, the facility staff was gentle, compassionate. They'd clearly done this many times before. Vivian asked to see him. Mason waited outside while she said goodbye to her father alone. 20 minutes passed. 30. Finally, she emerged, face dry but devastated. I need to call the funeral home, and my lawyer and the board, probably. My dad owned shares. She was making lists in her head, retreating into tasks. And I should write an obituary. Do I put in the obituary that his wife abandoned him? That feels petty. Vivian, and the house. I need to figure out what to do with the house. Sell it? Keep it? I don't know. I don't know anything. Her voice was rising. He was the only family I had left, and now he's gone, and I don't know what to do. Mason pulled her into his arms. Breathe. I can't. Yes, you can. In and out. With me. She sobbed into his chest, finally breaking, and he held her while the sun rose over the parking lot and Emma slept in the car and the world kept turning despite everything. I wasn't ready, Vivian choked out. I knew it was coming, but I wasn't ready. Nobody ever is. I should have visited more, You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It was all he needed. She cried until there were no tears left. Then she pulled back, wiped her face, and squared her shoulders. Okay, funeral home, lawyer, obituary. Not yet. First you're going to eat something, then sleep. Then we'll handle the rest. Mason, I can't just... Yes, you can. The world won't end if you take care of yourself first. For once, she didn't argue. The funeral was small. Just the way Mr. Carter would have wanted, Vivian said. 20 people in folding chairs at the Methodist Church on Main Street. Mrs. Henderson brought flowers from her garden. The Kowalskis made enough casseroles to feed an army. Ed Morrison from the hardware store gave a rambling speech about how Mr. Carter always knew which screws you needed before you did. Mason sat in the front row with Emma, watching Vivian stand at the podium in a black dress, trying to find words for a man who'd slowly disappeared before he finally left. "My father taught me that promises matter," she said, voice steady despite the tears on her face. "When I was 8 and my mother left, he promised me I'd be okay, that we'd be okay. And he kept that promise every single day until his brain wouldn't let him anymore." Emma gripped Mason's hand. "She's sad." "Yeah, baby. But she's not alone. We're here." "We are." Vivian's eyes found them in the crowd. Something in her expression softened just for a second before she continued. "He also taught me that running away doesn't solve anything, that you can't build a life on fear." Her voice cracked. "I wish I'd learned that lesson earlier, before I wasted so much time being scared." After the service, people filtered through the church basement for coffee and those casseroles. Everyone had stories about Mr. Carter, how he'd helped fix their car, brought them groceries during the blizzard of 2009, always remembered their kids' names. Vivian stood in the corner, accepting condolences with practiced grace, and Mason could see her shutting down, retreating into that polished CEO persona because it was safer than falling apart in front of people. He made his way to her side. "You need a break?" "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." She looked at him, exhausted. "Can we go? Just for a few minutes?" They slipped out the back door into the parking lot. Early June sunshine, completely at odds with the grief inside. Vivian leaned against his truck and closed her eyes. "I hate this. All these people who haven't talked to my dad in years showing up to feel good about themselves. They're trying to help by telling me he's in a better place, that at least he's not suffering." She laughed bitterly. "He shouldn't have suffered at all. He was 58. He should have had 20 more years." "I know. It's not fair." "It's not." She opened her eyes. "I keep waiting to feel something other than angry. Everyone keeps saying I'll feel peace eventually, that grief comes in stages. But all I feel is pissed off that he's gone, and I'm still here dealing with all this bullshit." Mason pulled her into his arms. "Then be pissed off. Nobody says you have to be peaceful about it." She buried her face in his shoulder. "What if I'm angry forever?" "Then you're angry forever, but I doubt it." "How do you know?" "Because eventually you'll remember the good stuff. The Christmas cookies, the butterscotch candies, the way he looked at you like you hung the moon." Mason pulled back to look at her. "The anger will fade. The love won't." Vivian's face crumpled. "I miss him so much already." "I know. And the worst part is he was already gone. He didn't know me for weeks. So why does this feel different?" "Because hoping he'd come back and knowing he never will aren't the same thing." She nodded against his chest, and they stood there in the parking lot while people came and went until Emma appeared in the doorway. "Everyone's asking where you went," she announced. "Mrs. Henderson thinks you're having a breakdown." "Are you?" Mason asked Vivian quietly. "Probably, but I can have it later." She wiped her face, squared her shoulders, and walked back inside. The breakdown came 3 days later. Mason found her sitting on her kitchen floor at 2 a.m, surrounded by photo albums, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "I can't find it," she gasped. "The picture, from when I was 10, the one with the ring, it was in this album and now it's gone and I can't—" "Okay, slow down. What picture?" "The one of you, giving me the ring. My dad kept it in this album and I wanted to put it in the casket, but I couldn't find it and now he's buried and I can't—" Mason knelt beside her. "Vivian, breathe. I can't do this. I can't be here without him. I can't be in this house where everything reminds me he's gone. I can't—" He pulled her into his lap and held her while she shattered, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken. She cried for her father, for her mother who'd left, for the company she'd walked away from, for every loss she'd been too strong to mourn properly. When she finally exhausted herself, she looked up at him with swollen eyes. "I don't know who I am anymore." "What do you mean?" "I was a CEO. Then I was a daughter taking care of her dying father. And now I'm just nothing. I have no job, no family, no purpose. She pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. I gave up everything, and for what? He still died, and I'm still alone. You're not alone, aren't I? You have Emma, your life, your own problems. I'm just the broken neighbor you felt sorry for. Is that what you think this is? Pity? What else could it be? We barely knew each other 6 months ago, and now you're here at 2 in the morning holding me while I lose my mind. Mason stood, frustration building. You really don't get it, do you? Get what? I'm not here because I feel sorry for you. I'm here because I... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Because what? Because I love you, Vivian. I'm in love with you. Have been since you showed up with that casserole pretending you just made too much. The kitchen went silent. Vivian stared at him. Don't. Don't what? Don't say that. Not now. Not when I'm like this. When would be better? When you're not grieving, not scared, not a mess. Mason crouched back down to her level. I love you specifically because you're all those things. Because you're real. Because you trust me enough to fall apart in front of me. That's not love. That's... What? What is it if it's not love? She looked away. I don't know. Yes, you do. You're just scared to admit it. Of course I'm scared. Everyone I've ever loved has left. My mother, my father, Marcus. Why would you be different? Because I'm choosing to stay. Every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Vivian's hands were shaking. What if I can't do this? What if I'm too broken? Then you're broken. So am I. We'll be broken together. That's not how it works. Why not? Because broken people don't fix each other. They just make a bigger mess. Or maybe they understand each other in ways whole people never could. Mason took her hands. I'm not asking you to be fixed. I'm asking you to let me stay. Tears streamed down her face. I'm so tired, Mason. Tired of being strong. Tired of having all the answers. Tired of feeling like if I stop moving, I'll collapse. Then collapse. I'll catch you. You can't promise that. Watch me. She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her fighting with herself. The part that wanted to believe him warring with the part that had learned not to trust promises. Finally, she whispered, I'm scared. I know. What if we don't work? What if we do? That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He pulled her closer. Vivian, I can't promise you forever. I can't promise we won't hurt each other or screw this up, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when things get hard. How do you know? Because you're it for me. You and that ridiculous casserole and the way you bake Christmas cookies in May, and how you listen to Emma like she's the most important person in the world. He cupped her face. You're it, and I'm done pretending I don't know it. Vivian kissed him then, desperate and messy, and tasting like tears, like surrender, like finally letting herself want something without apologizing for it. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. I love you too. I'm terrified, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I love you. That's all I needed to hear. They sat on her kitchen floor until sunrise, holding each other, surrounded by photo albums and memories of a man who'd taught his daughter that promises mattered. The picture turned up a week later, stuck between pages in a different album. Vivian found it while packing up her father's things. 10-year-old Mason on one knee, holding out that purple plastic ring. 10-year-old Vivian with dirt on her knees and wonder on her face. On the back, in her father's handwriting, some promises take a lifetime to keep. That's what makes them real. Vivian showed it to Mason that night. He knew, even then. Knew what? That we'd end up here, that you'd keep your promise. I was 10. I didn't know what I was promising. Didn't you? She traced the outline of the photo. You promised I wouldn't be alone. And I'm not. Because you're here. Mason pulled her close. I'm here. Emma wandered into the room, already in her pajamas. Are you guys being mushy again? Maybe, Vivian admitted. Good. That means you're happy. Emma climbed onto the couch between them. Can we watch a movie? What movie? Mason asked. I don't care, as long as we're all together. So they watched some animated thing about talking animals. Emma eventually falling asleep sprawled across both their laps, and Mason realized this was what happiness felt like. Not perfect. Not without grief or complication. Just this. his daughter, the woman he loved. All of them damaged in different ways, but somehow fitting together anyway. The next morning, Sarah called. "I'm coming to get Emma," she said without preamble. "This weekend." Mason's stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "Because we need to talk. About custody. About what's best for her." "She's happy here, Sarah." "Is she? Or is she just adjusting to another unstable situation?" "That's not fair. You moved her to the middle of nowhere with no plan. You're dating the neighbor who just had a death in the family. Emma's therapist says she's showing signs of attachment anxiety." Sarah's voice was tight. "I've given you 6 months to figure things out, but I'm not watching you drag our daughter through your midlife crisis." "This isn't a midlife crisis." "Then what is it?" "It's me trying to build a life worth living." Sarah went quiet, then softer. "I know, Mason, but Emma needs stability, not you figuring yourself out." "She has stability. She has a home, a routine, people who love her. She has a father who's in love with a woman going through a major life transition. What happens when that falls apart?" "It's not going to—" "You don't know that. You can't know that." Sarah sighed. "Look, I'm not trying to take her away. I just think we need to have a real conversation about what's best for her. In person. This weekend." Mason looked at Emma, still asleep on the couch, and felt his world tipping sideways. "Okay. Yeah. We'll talk." He told Vivian after Emma woke up and went outside to play. "She's right," Vivian said quietly. "About what?" "About Emma needing stability. About us being a risk." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Maybe you should focus on your daughter, not on me and my mess." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Use this as an excuse to run." "I'm not running. I'm being realistic." "You're being scared." Mason crossed to her. "Sarah's worried because that's what co-parents do. Doesn't mean she's right. Doesn't mean she's wrong either." "So what? You want to break up? Protect Emma from getting hurt if we don't work out?" "I want—" Vivian's voice broke. "I want to not be the reason you lose your daughter." "You're not." "How do you know? What if Sarah decides I'm a bad influence? What if she takes Emma back to Chicago and you have to choose?" "I would never make you that choice. You might not have a say." Mason pulled her into his arms despite her resistance. "Listen to me. Whatever happens with Sarah, whatever she decides, we'll handle it, together. But I'm not walking away from you because things might get complicated. They're already complicated. Then they get more complicated. I don't care." Vivian looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "I'm so tired of losing people." "I know, but you're not losing me." She wanted to believe him. He could see it. But years of abandonment didn't disappear because someone made a promise. Sarah arrived Friday afternoon, pulling up in her sensible Honda, looking exactly like she always did. Put together, competent, everything Mason had failed to be during their marriage. Emma ran to her. "Mommy!" "Hi, baby." Sarah hugged her tight, then looked at Mason over Emma's head. "Can we talk?" They sent Emma to play in her room while the adults sat at the kitchen table. Vivian offered to leave, but Sarah said, "No, stay. This involves you too." Mason's chest tightened. Sarah folded her hands on the table. "Emma's therapist sent me her session notes from the last 3 months." "She's not supposed to do that without my permission," Mason said. "She did it with Emma's permission. Emma asked her to." Sarah pulled out a folder. "Do you want to know what they say? I'm sure you're going to tell me. They say Emma's doing better, that she's more emotionally regulated, that she talks about feeling safe here." Sarah's voice was careful. "They also say she's formed a strong attachment to Vivian, strong enough that Dr. Chen flagged it as a potential concern." Vivian flinched. "Not because the attachment is bad," Sarah continued, "but because Emma's pattern has been to get close to people who leave. Me. You, when we separated. Even her teacher last year who transferred schools." She looked at Vivian. "Dr. Chen wants to make sure Emma understands that your presence in her life isn't temporary." "I'm not going anywhere," Vivian said quietly. "Can you promise that?" "Sarah," Mason started. "No, it's a fair question." Vivian met Sarah's eyes. "I can't promise forever. Nobody can. But I can promise I love her, that I'm choosing to be here, and that if things change, it won't be because I didn't care enough to stay." Sarah studied her. You love Mason. Yes. And you're willing to be part of Emma's life long term, not just until it gets hard? I'm already part of her life, and it's already hard. I'm still here. Something shifted in Sarah's expression. Okay. Mason blinked. Okay? I came here ready to fight, to demand we revisit custody because I thought you were being reckless. Sarah looked at him. But Emma's happy, really happy, and Dr. Chen says this is the most stable she's been in 2 years. So you're not taking her? I'm not taking her. Sarah's smile was sad. You're doing good, Mason. Better than good. You found something here that works. Relief flooded through him. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep showing up for her. That's all I ask. After Sarah left, promising to visit again in 2 weeks, Mason found Vivian on the back porch. You okay? He asked. She could have said no, could have decided I was too much of a risk. But she didn't. This time. What about next time? What if I screw up? What if... Mason turned her to face him. What if you stop waiting for everything to fall apart? I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. But maybe we learn together. Emma appeared in the doorway. Are you guys going to get married? They both froze. Because if you are, I want to be the flower girl, and I want to wear purple. And there should be a dog in the wedding, specifically a golden retriever named Pancake. We're not... Mason started. We haven't talked about... Vivian said at the same time. Emma crossed her arms. But you love each other, right? Yes, they said in unison. And you want to be together? Yes. Then you should get married. That's how it works. She said it like they were idiots for not understanding basic logic. After Emma went to bed, Mason and Vivian sat on the porch in the dark. She's not wrong, Vivian said quietly. About what? About us getting married. Eventually. If we want this to be real. Mason's heart kicked up. Is that what you want? I don't know. Maybe. Someday. She looked at him. Is that crazy? We've only been together a few months. I gave you a ring when I was 10. I think we've been building to this for 20 years. Vivian laughed, pulling out that purple plastic ring from her pocket. She carried it everywhere now. This ring? That ring. It's kind of small, doesn't fit anymore. Then I'll get you a new one. Yeah? Yeah. Mason took her hand. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but someday, when we're ready. I'll get you a ring that fits and ask you properly. And if I say no, then I'll ask again and again until you're too annoyed to keep refusing. She kissed him. That's a terrible proposal strategy. You have a better one? Not really. They sat there as summer settled around them, both of them damaged and scared and somehow less alone than they'd been in years. 3 months later, on a warm September evening, Mason found Vivian in her backyard. She'd been clearing out her father's garden, trying to salvage the tomatoes he'd planted before he got too sick to maintain them. She was covered in dirt, hair escaping her ponytail, and she'd never looked more beautiful. Hey, he said. Need help? Almost done. Just fighting with this last tomato cage. He helped her untangle it, both of them working in comfortable silence. When they finished, she stood and surveyed the garden. He would have liked this, seeing it taken care of. I think he would have liked you taking care of it. She smiled. Maybe. Mason reached into his pocket, fingers closing around the small box he'd been carrying for a week, waiting for the right moment, realizing there was no perfect time. Just now. Vivian? Yeah? He pulled out the box, opened it. Inside was a simple silver band with a small diamond. Nothing flashy, nothing like what a CEO should get. Just honest and real. I know we said someday, but I'm tired of someday. I'm tired of waiting for the perfect moment, or the right time, or whatever we're supposed to wait for. He got down on one knee in the dirt. I love you, Emma loves you, and I don't want to spend another day pretending this isn't exactly what I want. Vivian's hands flew to her mouth. I know I'm broke. I know I'm still figuring my life out. I know this house is falling apart, and I can barely afford to fix it. But I also know that every day with you feels right in a way nothing else has. So marry me. Not because it's practical or makes sense, but because we're better together than apart. Tears streamed down her face. Mason, you can say no. You can tell me it's too fast or too soon or too crazy, but I had to ask. Because that 10-year-old kid who promised you wouldn't be lonely, he's still here, still keeping his promise. Vivian pulled him to his feet. Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, this is crazy. Yes, I'm terrified. But also, yes, you're right. We're better together. She held out her hand. Put the ring on before I change my mind. He slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Emma cheered from the porch where she'd apparently been watching the whole thing. I called it! I'm going to be the best flower girl ever! You were spying? Mason called. Vivian told me you were going to propose. I wanted to see. Emma ran over. Can we get Pancake now, the golden retriever? We'll talk about it, Vivian said, laughing. That's adult code for no. That's adult code for maybe. They stood in the garden as the sun set, covered in dirt, Emma dancing around them, and Mason felt something he'd been missing for years. Home. Not the house, not the town, but this. These people. This feeling of belonging. The wedding happened in October, in the backyard between their two houses, under the maple tree where Mason used to climb. 50 people in folding chairs. Emma in a purple dress, carrying flowers and leading a borrowed golden retriever named Biscuit down the aisle because Pancake didn't exist yet. Vivian wore a simple dress and the purple plastic ring on a chain around her neck. Mason wore the only suit he owned, the one from his failed construction business days, and didn't care that it was slightly too small. When they exchanged vows, Vivian pulled out a folded piece of paper. When we were kids, you promised I'd never be lonely. And I thought that meant you'd always be there. That love was about never being apart. She looked at him. But I was wrong. You can't promise to never leave. Life doesn't work that way. People die. Circumstances change. Nothing's guaranteed. Mason felt his throat tighten. But you did keep your promise. Because even when we were apart, even when I was alone, I carried that feeling with me. The feeling of being chosen, of mattering to someone. She wiped her eyes. And now I get to choose you back. Every single day. That's what this is. Not a promise that nothing will ever go wrong, but a promise that whatever happens, we'll face it together. Mason's vows were simpler. I don't have fancy words. I'm not good at speeches. But I know this. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and Emma. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never forget it. They kissed under the maple tree while Emma cheered and Biscuit barked and everyone cried, including Mrs. Henderson, who'd brought half the flowers in her garden. At the reception, which was just food and music in Mason's backyard, Sarah showed up with her new boyfriend. Mason had invited her because Emma wanted her there, and to his surprise, Sarah seemed genuinely happy for them. You did good, she told him quietly. Both of you. Thanks for giving us a chance. Thanks for proving me wrong. She looked at Vivian, dancing with Emma. She's good for you. Good for Emma. Yeah, she is. Later, after most people had left, Mason found Vivian sitting on the porch steps, looking at the two houses side by side. What are you thinking? He asked. That we should knock down the fence between the yards, make it one space. That's very symbolic. I'm serious. Emma should be able to run between houses freely, and we should plant a garden, a big one, with tomatoes for my dad. Mason sat beside her. We're really doing this, building a life here. Looks like it. She leaned against him. Are you happy? Yeah, I really am. Even though you're still broke? Even though the house needs $10,000 in repairs? Even though, he kissed the top of her head. Turns out being rich isn't about money. That's corny. Don't care. It's true. Emma appeared in her flower girl dress, now grass-stained and rumpled. Can I sleep in Vivian's house tonight, since it's a special day? It's our house now, Vivian corrected. Both of them. And yes. They tucked Emma in together, both of them awkward at the joint bedtime routine but figuring it out. When she finally fell asleep, they stood in the doorway watching her. I'm scared I'll mess this up, Vivian whispered. You will. So will I. That's how this works. Very reassuring. I'm serious. We're going to fight. We're going to have days where we drive each other crazy. Emma's going to play us against each other. Money's going to be tight. Your company might implode. My truck might finally die. He pulled her close. And we'll handle all of it, because that's what people who love each other do. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of being afraid. They spent their wedding night in Mason's house, their house, talking until dawn about plans and dreams and all the ways their life might unfold. They talked about maybe buying the house next door from Vivian's father's estate, so Emma could have her own space when she got older. About planting that garden. About whether Vivian might start a new company, something smaller and more local. About whether Mason might go back to school, finally finish that architecture degree. Nothing was certain, nothing was guaranteed. But for the first time in their lives, both of them were choosing the uncertainty together instead of running from it alone. And somewhere, in a box in the attic, that old Polaroid remained. Two kids making a promise they didn't understand, not knowing it would take 20 years and two broken lives and one dying father to teach them what it really meant. Some promises aren't about forever. They're about showing up, about choosing someone when it's easier to choose yourself, about building something real out of all the broken pieces. Mason learned that. Vivian learned that. And together, they learned that being loved isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who sees all your damage and stays anyway. Emma learned it too, watching her father and Vivian stumble through building a family from scratch. She learned that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about small kindnesses, showing up when it matters, being brave enough to let people in even when they might leave. And maybe that was the real promise Mason had made all those years ago with a purple plastic ring. Not that Vivian would never be alone, but that she'd always be worth staying for. The years that followed weren't perfect. Mason's truck did die, and they couldn't afford to replace it for 6 months. Vivian's company went through a rocky transition, and she lost a chunk of her investment. Emma struggled in school, her anxiety flaring up during tests. They fought about money and parenting and whose turn it was to deal with the leaking roof. But they also planted that garden, got Pancake the golden retriever when Emma turned 7, knocked down the fence and made one big yard where neighborhood kids played every evening, hosted Christmas cookie parties in May that became a town tradition. Vivian started a small consulting firm helping other tech founders transition out of leadership. Mason enrolled in night classes and slowly worked toward finishing his degree. Emma thrived, her anxiety easing as she learned that people could stay even when things got hard. And every anniversary, they stood under the maple tree and remembered two scared people who'd chosen hope over safety, who'd learned that the strongest promises aren't the ones you make when you're young and foolish. They're the ones you keep anyway.